Tokyo, on the other hand, has confirmed 68 new coronavirus cases, a record daily increase. This as the Japanese capital scrambles to prevent a wider outbreak. Japan has so far been spared a major spreading of the coronavirus that has hit Europe and North America, but authorities fear a rise in cases with no known source of infection could signal a bigger new wave. Prime Minister Shinzo Abe on Saturday promised an unprecedented package of steps to cushion the world's third biggest economy from the coronavirus pandemic, warning that Japan may need to prepare for a national emergency. For more on the situation in Japan and the rest of Asia, let's now go over to our correspondent Grace Lee from Tokyo. So Grace, now tell me, what is the situation in Japan as of now? We know that Prime Minister Shinzo Abe has promised an unprecedented package of measures to cushion the economic fallout caused by the virus in Japan for now.
Yeah, officials here say the next couple of days will be critical in how the coronavirus situation plays out here in Japan. Over the weekend, people here in Tokyo were asked to stay indoors. That warning has now extended until mid-April, asking people to stay indoors unless it's absolutely necessary to go outside. But again, the government hasn't put in any hard measures to prevent people from going outside or going to work. So it seems a lot of people do still have to physically travel to get to their workplaces. And that's been a major concern here. Now, Tokyo is on the brink of going into a total lockdown, according to Tokyo's governor. But Prime Minister Shinzo Abe stopped short of ordering that and says that he's too worried about the economic impact that might have on this major city.
Right. I'm just shifting focus to China a bit. It seems that while the world is locking down its borders, life in China is slowly beginning to return to normal. Can you tell us a little bit more about this?
Yeah, so it seems that China feels like the brunt of the action is over. They do want to kind of make things go back to normal, especially because of the economic impact that the coronavirus has had so far. But it seems that people there are still very uncomfortable with the notion of going out and interacting with society again after months of lockdown. We did see some tense scenes in Hubei province yesterday when some of those workers tried to cross into another province to start working again, and there were some major clashes there. Police were involved. So it seems that people there are still nervous about the spread. Now, in terms of coronavirus numbers in China, it seems most cases at this point are imported, according to the Chinese government. But there is worry because recently a Hong Kong broadcaster revealed that some patients in Wuhan were being turned away even if they did have coronavirus-like symptoms.
Right.
So perhaps the testing has stopped, but the numbers are still going up.
Right. And my final question, so what would you say are the steps taken by countries like, say, South Korea or China, for that matter, which could have worked well in containing this outbreak, which could be a lesson for other countries as well?
Well, very early on, they did try to warn people to social distance. Here in Japan, that was a similar story. They got children to stop going to school very early on. In Korea, their testing numbers were very high, and that's what allowed a lot of people to keep their distance from patients who did test positive. So that's kind of the major takeaway for a lot of these countries. The U.S. is seeing a high spike in numbers because they didn't test very early on. Here in Japan, they're worried that there might be a spike in numbers very soon because, again, they didn't test very early on. So the message is the same from the CDC as well. Test, and make sure that if you do have coronavirus-like symptoms, stay indoors and make sure that you and the people around you remain safe.
Right, Grace, thank you so much for those inputs. So testing and social distancing seem to be the two terms that would work well at this difficult time. Now let's move on to our next story and shift focus to the United States, where U.S. President Donald Trump announced that the U.S. would be extending the social distancing guidelines to slow down the spread of the virus till April the 30th. The decision comes at the time when the United States tops the world table with the most number of coronavirus cases now. As of today, the lethal virus has infected more than 141,000 and has killed over 2,400 people in the United States. Earlier, President Trump had set Easter as the original deadline to end the coronavirus guidelines. However, the president said that he has now decided to extend the deadline as experts predict a sharp increase in the number of deaths due to the virus.
The peak, the highest point of death rates, remember this, is likely to hit in 2 weeks. Nothing would be worse than declaring victory before the victory is won. That would be the greatest loss of all. Therefore, the next 2 weeks and during this period, it's very important that everyone strongly follow the guidelines, have to follow the guidelines that our great Vice President holds up a lot. He's holding that up a lot. He believes in it so strongly. The better you do, the faster this whole nightmare will end. Therefore, we will be extending our guidelines to April 30th to slow the spread.
A few days ago, President Trump issued an executive order to prevent institutions from hoarding essential medical and protective gear. The order also stated that hoarders who accumulate essentials when not in dire need could be criminally prosecuted. On the contrary, reports of shortage in medical supplies have been on a constant rise.
When I heard the number today, first time I've heard that number, because I've been asking the same question that some people have been asking, I felt even better about what we did last week with the $2.2 trillion, because you're talking about a potential of up to 2.2 billion, and some people said it could even be higher than that. So you're talking about 2.2 million deaths, 2.2 million people from this.
Dr. Anthony Fauci, a leading immunologist from the U.S., has predicted that more than 200,000 deaths due to the virus in another few weeks is possible. In New York, a record of 965 people died in a single day, and other cities like Detroit and New Orleans are pleading for more medical supplies. Foreseeing a possible peak during Easter, the Trump administration has called on General Motors to make ventilators under the Defense Production Act and has also asked the U.S. Congress to restore full tax deductions for food and entertainment to tackle the lethal pandemic.